The team photo was printed without her. No one noticed, until the news station dug deeper. "Who's the soldier running comms in the background?" they asked. Turns out, she was the one who coordinated the mission's success, flagged the threat, rerouted the approach, and kept the unit synced from start to finish. The article ran with her photo. Headlines named her the quiet force behind it all. And suddenly, the one they cropped out became the one everyone wanted to talk about. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories of unsung heroes whose quiet leadership changes everything, consider subscribing for more content that reveals the extraordinary impact of those who serve from the shadows. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in the media briefing room at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, casting harsh shadows across the faces of the assembled reporters. At 1,400 hours on a Tuesday in March, Staff Sergeant Maria Elena Santos stood against the back wall, her digital camouflage uniform crisp and her communications headset hanging around her neck like a badge of office. Before her, the official photographer arranged the members of Bravo Company's 3rd Platoon for what would become the most widely circulated military photograph of the year. Captain James Mitchell, the platoon leader whose decisive actions during Operation Desert Shield had earned him a Bronze Star with V device, stood at the center of the formation. His square jaw and steely blue eyes made him the perfect poster image for military heroism, exactly what the Public Affairs Office needed for their recruitment campaign. To his right stood First Sergeant David Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran whose weathered face told the story of multiple deployments across 3 continents. The other squad leaders flanked them, each representing a different aspect of the modern military's diversity and competence. "Sergeant Santos, we need you to step back a bit more," called the photographer, a civilian contractor whose expensive camera equipment seemed to intimidate the soldiers more than enemy fire ever had. "You're creating some visual clutter in the background." Maria stepped backward another pace, her boots silent on the polished linoleum floor. She had grown accustomed to being relegated to the periphery during these media events, despite her integral role in the mission that had brought them all here. The mission in question had taken place 6 weeks earlier in a remote valley in Afghanistan, where 3rd Platoon had been tasked with clearing a suspected weapons cache that intelligence reports indicated was being used to supply insurgent operations throughout the region. What should have been a routine search and destroy operation had quickly evolved into a complex tactical situation that required split-second decision-making and seamless coordination between multiple units operating across difficult terrain. Maria had been the primary communications coordinator for the operation, responsible for maintaining contact between the platoon's 3 squads, their supporting elements, and higher headquarters. Her voice had been the constant thread connecting all elements of the mission, relaying intelligence updates, coordinating fire support, and ensuring that every soldier knew exactly where friendly forces were located at all times. It was unglamorous work that required intense concentration and technical expertise, performed from a concealed position where she could maintain radio contact while remaining protected from enemy fire. The photographer continued arranging his subjects, directing them to adjust their positions for optimal lighting and composition. "Captain Mitchell, turn slightly to your left. First Sergeant Rodriguez, chin up just a bit. Perfect." The camera's motor drive whirred as he captured frame after frame, each image carefully composed to convey strength, competence, and the professional excellence of America's military forces. Behind the lens, Maria observed the choreographed presentation with mixed emotions. She understood the importance of public relations and the need to maintain public support for military operations, but she also knew that the story being told through these photographs was incomplete. The heroes standing in formation represented only the most visible aspect of a complex operation that had required the coordinated efforts of dozens of personnel, many of whom would never receive recognition for their contributions. The mission had begun before dawn on February 14th, with 3rd Platoon conducting an air assault insertion into the target area. Maria had spent the previous 72 hours in the Tactical Operations Center, coordinating with intelligence analysts, fire support coordinators, and logistics personnel to ensure that every aspect of the operation was thoroughly planned and rehearsed. Her communications plan had accounted for multiple contingencies, backup frequencies, and alternative procedures that would allow the mission to continue even if primary systems failed. As the soldiers had moved through the pre-dawn darkness toward their objective, Maria's voice had provided a steady stream of updates and coordination messages that kept all elements synchronized and informed. Her position in the command post had given her access to intelligence feeds, aerial reconnaissance imagery, and communications with higher headquarters that individual squad leaders couldn't monitor while focused on their immediate tactical situations. Intelligence update, all stations. Maria had transmitted as the platoon approached the target area. Drone surveillance indicates movement in grid square 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, approximately 200 meters north of your primary route. Recommend adjustment to secondary approach. Her calm, professional delivery had conveyed critical information without creating alarm or confusion among the soldiers who depended on her guidance. Captain Mitchell had acknowledged the transmission and directed his squads to modify their approach route, a decision that would later prove crucial to the mission's success. What the intelligence update had identified was an enemy observation post that would have detected the platoon's advance and compromised the entire operation. Maria's vigilance and her ability to synthesize information from multiple sources had allowed the unit to maintain the element of surprise that was essential for their success. The photographer finished capturing his posed shots and began preparing his equipment for departure. Thank you, gentlemen. These images should be available for review tomorrow morning. As the official photo session concluded, the soldiers began to disperse, returning to their normal duties with the mixture of relief and embarrassment that typically followed media events. Maria gathered her communications equipment and prepared to return to the Tactical Operations Center, where she would resume her normal duties monitoring radio traffic and maintaining contact with deployed units. Her role in the media briefing had been minimal, exactly as she had expected. Public affairs events focused on visible leadership and dramatic action, not the technical competence and behind-the-scenes coordination that actually made military operations successful. 3 weeks later, the photographs from that media session appeared in newspapers and magazines across the country, accompanying articles about military success in Afghanistan and the professionalism of American forces. Captain Mitchell's strong profile and confident expression graced the front page of USA Today, while First Sergeant Rodriguez appeared in Time magazine alongside an article about veteran leadership in combat zones. The photographs were everything the Public Affairs Office had hoped for: clean, professional images that conveyed competence and confidence without revealing sensitive operational details. They would be used in recruitment materials, congressional briefings, and media releases for months to come. What no one noticed, including the editors who selected the images for publication, was that one critical participant in the mission had been edited out of the visual narrative entirely. Maria first learned about the media coverage when her mother called from San Antonio, excited to see her daughter's unit featured in the national news. "Mija, I've been looking at the pictures online, but I don't see you anywhere. Weren't you part of that mission they're writing about?" The question caught Maria off guard. She had assumed her minimal presence in the background of some photos would be visible, but apparently the cropping and editing process had removed her entirely from the published images. The omission didn't surprise Maria, though it did disappoint her mother, who had been hoping to share the news of her daughter's service with friends and neighbors. Maria had long since accepted that her role as a communications specialist would never receive the same attention as the infantry soldiers who carried rifles and engaged the enemy directly. Her contribution was essential but invisible, technical rather than dramatic, requiring expertise rather than physical courage. What Maria didn't know was that her mother's casual inquiry had been overheard by Jessica Martinez, an investigative reporter for the San Antonio Express-News who specialized in military affairs and veteran issues. Jessica had built her career on finding the untold stories behind the headlines, particularly those involving service members whose contributions had been overlooked or minimized by official accounts. Jessica's interest was further piqued when she examined the published photographs more carefully and noticed several inconsistencies in the visual narrative. The formal group photos showed leadership and support personnel, but action shots taken during the actual mission revealed additional figures in the background whose roles weren't explained in any of the accompanying articles. One figure in particular appeared repeatedly in multiple images, always positioned near communications equipment, always focused on equipment rather than posing for cameras. The reporter's investigation began with a simple Freedom of Information Act request for unedited photographs from the media session at Fort Campbell. When those images arrived, Jessica immediately noticed that several frames included a female soldier in communications gear who had been cropped out of all published versions. The woman's position and equipment suggested a significant role in the operation, yet she was completely absent from the official narrative. Jessica's next step was to contact the Public Affairs Office at Fort Campbell, requesting interviews with personnel who had participated in the February 14th operation. The initial response was polite but unhelpful. Captain Mitchell and First Sergeant Rodriguez were available for additional interviews, but other personnel were either unavailable or not authorized to speak with media representatives. Frustrated by the military's limited cooperation, Jessica decided to approach the story from a different angle. Using public records and social media research, she began identifying other personnel who had been deployed with 3rd Platoon during the relevant time period. Her breakthrough came when she discovered a blog post written by Specialist Tim Johnson, a medic who had participated in the mission and mentioned the critical role played by their communications coordinator in ensuring the operation's success. Johnson's blog post didn't mention Maria by name, but it provided enough details about the communications coordination to establish that someone had played a crucial role that wasn't reflected in the official accounts. "Our comms sergeant was the reason we stayed synchronized throughout the whole op," Johnson had written. "She kept us connected, provided real-time intel updates, and caught threats that we would have missed otherwise. Without her, things could have gone very differently." Armed with this new information, Jessica contacted Johnson directly, explaining her investigation and requesting additional details about the mission's communications support. The specialist was initially reluctant to discuss operational details, but Jessica's questions about media representation and recognition for all participants eventually convinced him to provide background information on a non-attribution basis. "Look, I can't give you specific operational details," Johnson explained during their phone conversation, "but I can tell you that our success that day depended on coordination from our Tactical Operations Center. The person running communications for our mission was absolutely critical to everything that went right. Without her voice in our ears, providing updates and keeping us synced, we would have walked into at least 2 enemy positions that could have gotten people killed." Johnson's description of the communications coordinator's role painted a picture of someone whose technical expertise and situational awareness had been instrumental in the mission's success. The specialist described how intelligence updates had redirected their approach route, how real-time coordination had prevented friendly fire incidents, and how seamless communications had allowed the platoon to adapt to changing tactical situations without confusion or delay. The specialist also confirmed that the communications coordinator was a female sergeant whose position in the Tactical Operations Center had kept her out of most photographs, but whose voice had been a constant presence throughout the operation. Johnson's account established that this individual's contribution had been far more significant than suggested by her absence from official media coverage. Jessica's investigation continued with attempts to identify the specific person who had served as communications coordinator for the mission. Military personnel records were protected by privacy regulations, but public information and cross-referencing of deployment records eventually led her to Staff Sergeant Maria Elena Santos, a communications specialist with 8 years of active duty service and multiple deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. Further research revealed that Maria had received several awards for technical proficiency and professional competence, including an Army Commendation Medal for her performance during a previous deployment. Her military occupational specialty was Communications Systems Operator Maintainer, a technical field that required extensive training and certification but rarely received public recognition compared to combat arms specialties. Jessica attempted to contact Maria directly, but military regulations prevented soldiers from speaking with media representatives without authorization from their chain of command. Her request for an interview was forwarded through official channels, where it encountered the same bureaucratic obstacles that had limited her access to other personnel involved in the operation. Undeterred by these obstacles, Jessica decided to examine the broader issue of recognition and representation in military media coverage. Her investigation expanded to include analysis of military photography from multiple operations, looking for patterns in how different roles and specialties were portrayed in official images and media releases. The pattern she discovered was consistent and troubling. Technical specialists, support personnel, and female service members were systematically underrepresented in official military photography, despite their essential contributions to mission success. The visual narrative presented to the public emphasized traditional masculine roles and visible leadership, while minimizing or eliminating the diverse skills and personnel that actually made military operations possible. Jessica's research also revealed that Maria's experience was not unique. Across multiple units and operations, she found examples of essential personnel whose contributions had been overlooked or minimized in official accounts. Communications specialists, intelligence analysts, logistics coordinators, and medical personnel regularly found themselves excluded from recognition despite their critical roles in mission success. The pattern was particularly pronounced for female service members, who were often relegated to background positions in photographs or excluded entirely from visual narratives. Even when women held leadership positions or performed critical functions, their presence was minimized in favor of traditional military imagery that emphasized masculine stereotypes and conventional ideas about military heroism. Armed with this broader context, Jessica crafted a story that used Maria's experience as a window into larger issues of recognition and representation in military media. Her article, titled "The Voice Behind the Victory: How Military Media Misses the Real Heroes," combined specific details about the February 14th operation with analysis of systematic patterns in military public relations. The article was published on Memorial Day weekend, when public attention to military issues was at its peak. Jessica's opening paragraphs described the mission in Afghanistan and the official photography session that followed, emphasizing the disconnect between who was credited for success and who had actually made success possible. While Captain James Mitchell stood confidently before the cameras, receiving recognition for his leadership during a successful mission in Afghanistan, the person whose voice had guided his soldiers through enemy territory was nowhere to be seen, Jessica wrote. Staff Sergeant Maria Elena Santos had been cropped out of the official photographs, her technical expertise and critical decision-making invisible to a public that never learned her name. The article's publication triggered immediate interest from other media outlets, military affairs commentators, and advocacy organizations focused on veterans' issues and gender equality in the military. Jessica's reporting had touched on multiple sensitive topics: recognition for technical specialists, representation of female service members, and the gap between public perception and military reality. Within 24 hours of publication, Jessica's newspaper received calls from producers at CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, all requesting additional information about Maria's story and seeking opportunities to interview the sergeant directly. The Army's Public Affairs Office was also contacted, requesting official comment on the issues raised in the article and clarification about personnel recognition policies. The military's initial response was defensive, emphasizing that all personnel who participated in successful operations receive appropriate recognition through official channels, even if they don't appear in media coverage. Awards and commendations are based on performance and contribution, not media visibility, stated a public affairs spokesperson. Staff Sergeant Santos has received appropriate recognition for her service through official military channels. However, the spokesperson's statement only intensified interest in Maria's story, as reporters began investigating what appropriate recognition actually meant and whether technical specialists received equivalent acknowledgement compared to more visible military roles. Freedom of Information Act requests flooded the Public Affairs Office, seeking details about awards, commendations, and recognition policies for different military specialties. The growing media attention finally prompted the Army to authorize Maria to speak with reporters, though under carefully controlled circumstances with public affairs personnel present. The interview took place at Fort Campbell, in the same briefing room where the original photographs had been taken 3 months earlier. Maria appeared before the cameras wearing her dress blue uniform. Her communications badge prominently displayed alongside ribbons representing 8 years of professional service. Her demeanor was calm and professional, reflecting the same competence that had made her voice a reassuring presence for soldiers in combat. She answered questions directly and thoughtfully, neither seeking attention nor deflecting credit, simply explaining her role and the importance of coordination in military operations. My job is to ensure that everyone stays connected and informed, Maria explained to the assembled reporters. When soldiers are moving through dangerous terrain, they need real-time information about threats, friendly force locations, and changing tactical situations. I provide that information, coordinate between different units, and make sure everyone has what they need to accomplish the mission safely. The interviewer pressed for details about the February 14th operation, asking Maria to describe her specific contributions to the mission's success. I monitored intelligence feeds, coordinated with supporting units, and provided real-time updates to our soldiers on the ground, she replied. When we identified an enemy observation post that threatened our approach route, I relayed that information so our leadership could adjust their plan. It's not dramatic work, but it's essential for keeping everyone safe and ensuring mission success. When asked about her absence from official photographs and media coverage, Maria's response was measured and professional. Recognition isn't why I do this job, she said. I serve because I believe in the mission and because my teammates depend on me to do my part. Whether or not I appear in newspapers doesn't change my commitment to excellence or my responsibility to the soldiers who count on my expertise. However, Maria's diplomatic response didn't fully address the broader issues that Jessica's reporting had raised. Follow-up questions from other reporters explored topics of gender representation, recognition for technical specialists, and the military's approach to public relations and media coverage. Do you think female service members receive equal recognition for their contributions? Asked a reporter from the Washington Post. Maria paused, choosing her words carefully. I think the military is evolving in how it recognizes different types of contribution. Technical skills are increasingly important in modern operations, and I hope that will be reflected in how we talk about military success. The interview concluded with Maria returning to her normal duties, but the media attention continued to build. Her story had become a focal point for discussions about military culture, gender equality, and the gap between public perception and military reality. Op-ed writers, veterans advocates, and military analysts used her experience to illustrate broader points about service, recognition, and the complexity of modern military operations. 2 weeks after the interview, an unexpected development gave Maria's story renewed significance. During a routine inventory at the National Archives, a researcher discovered a collection of previously unprocessed documents from military operations in Afghanistan, including after-action reports and award recommendations that had never been fully reviewed due to administrative backlogs. Among these documents was a recommendation for the Bronze Star Medal that had been submitted by Captain Mitchell immediately after the February 14th operation. The recommendation described the critical role played by the communications coordinator in ensuring mission success, specifically noting how real-time intelligence updates and seamless coordination had prevented potential casualties and enabled the unit to accomplish its objectives. The recommendation had been lost in administrative processing and never acted upon, but its discovery provided official documentation of Maria's contributions to the mission. More importantly, it confirmed the accuracy of Jessica's reporting and validated claims about the importance of technical specialists whose contributions were often overlooked. The discovered recommendation was forwarded through appropriate channels for review and processing, but its existence had already created a new dynamic in media coverage of Maria's story. Here was official documentation from the field commander himself, written immediately after the operation, describing contributions that merited one of the military's highest awards for valor. Captain Mitchell, contacted for comment about his award recommendation, confirmed its authenticity and expressed frustration that administrative delays had prevented its processing. Staff Sergeant Santos's performance during that operation was exceptional, he stated. Her coordination and intelligence updates were crucial to our success. She absolutely deserved recognition, and I'm disappointed that bureaucratic problems prevented that from happening. The revelation about the lost award recommendation triggered a comprehensive review of personnel recognition policies and administrative procedures. Congressional representatives began asking questions about how often similar oversights occurred and what steps could be taken to ensure that all deserving personnel received appropriate recognition for their service. Within the military, Maria's story became a case study in the importance of comprehensive personnel recognition and the need for improved administrative procedures. Training programs for public affairs personnel began, including discussions about inclusive media representation and the importance of recognizing diverse contributions to mission success. For Maria personally, the attention was both gratifying and overwhelming. She had never sought public recognition, but the validation of her professional competence and the acknowledgement of her contributions provided satisfaction that went beyond personal reward. More importantly, the attention focused on her story had created opportunities to educate the public about the complexity of modern military operations and the diverse skills required for mission success. The Bronze Star recommendation was eventually processed and approved, with the presentation ceremony taking place 6 months after Jessica's original article publication. The ceremony was held at Fort Campbell, with full media coverage documenting the belated recognition of Maria's contributions to the February 14th operation. During the ceremony, Maria's mother sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face as she watched her daughter receive the recognition that had been delayed by administrative oversight. The moment represented not just personal vindication but also broader progress in how the military acknowledged diverse contributions to mission success. Captain Mitchell, now promoted to Major, presented the award with remarks that emphasized the importance of coordination and technical expertise in modern military operations. Staff Sergeant Santos represents the best of what makes our military effective, he said. Her technical competence, professional dedication, and commitment to excellence ensured our mission's success and our soldiers' safety. This recognition is long overdue. In her acceptance remarks, Maria acknowledged her teammates and emphasized the collaborative nature of military success. This award belongs to everyone who participated in that operation, she said. Military success depends on every person doing their job with excellence, whether they're in front of the cameras or behind the scenes. I'm honored to represent all the technical specialists whose contributions make our missions possible. The ceremony concluded with the traditional photograph session, but this time Maria stood prominently in the center of the formation, her Bronze Star clearly visible on her dress uniform. The contrast with the earlier photo session, where she had been relegated to the background and eventually cropped out entirely, could not have been more stark. Jessica Martinez covered the ceremony for her newspaper, writing a follow-up article that explored how Maria's story had influenced broader discussions about military recognition and media representation. The reporter noted that several other service members had come forward with similar experiences, suggesting that Maria's case was part of a larger pattern that needed continued attention. The long-term impact of Maria's story extended beyond individual recognition to influence broader military policies and procedures. Personnel evaluation systems were modified to better account for technical contributions. Public affairs guidelines were updated to ensure more inclusive media representation, and administrative procedures were streamlined to prevent awards recommendations from being lost in bureaucratic processing. Training programs for military leaders began, including case studies based on Maria's experience, emphasizing the importance of recognizing all contributions to mission success and ensuring that technical specialists received appropriate acknowledgement for their expertise. The case became a standard example in leadership development programs, illustrating how comprehensive recognition strengthened unit cohesion and operational effectiveness. For women in technical military specialties, Maria's story provided both inspiration and validation. Her experience demonstrated that technical competence could be recognized and valued, even in a military culture that traditionally emphasized physical courage and visible leadership. Female service members across different specialties pointed to her example as evidence that diverse forms of contribution could be acknowledged and rewarded. The media attention surrounding Maria's story also created opportunities for her to speak at professional conferences, military training events, and veterans organizations. Her presentations focused on the importance of technical excellence, the value of diverse skills in military operations, and the need for comprehensive recognition of all service members who contributed to mission success. During these speaking engagements, Maria consistently emphasized that her experience was not unique and that many service members performed critical functions without receiving appropriate recognition. She used her platform to advocate for improved personnel policies, better administrative procedures, and more inclusive approaches to acknowledging military service. As Maria approached the end of her military career, She reflected on how the unexpected media attention had changed her perspective on service and recognition. While she had always been motivated by professional competence rather than public acknowledgement, the experience had taught her the importance of ensuring that all service members received appropriate recognition for their contributions. Her final military assignment was as an instructor at the Army's Signal School, where she taught communications procedures to the next generation of technical specialists. Her courses emphasized not only technical competence, but also the importance of understanding how individual contributions fit into larger operational success. Students learned both the mechanics of military communications and the broader significance of their role in mission accomplishment. In her retirement ceremony, Maria was recognized not only for her technical expertise, but also for her role in advancing discussions about recognition and representation in military service. The ceremony drew attendance from across the communications community, with many speakers noting how her experience had influenced broader conversations about the value of technical specialties. Major Mitchell, who had been promoted again and now served as a battalion commander, spoke at the ceremony about the lasting impact of Maria's service. Staff Sergeant Santos taught us all that military success depends on every person performing their role with excellence, he said. Her technical competence saved lives, her professional dedication ensured mission success, and her example influenced how we think about recognition and service. The retirement ceremony concluded with the presentation of the Meritorious Service Medal, recognizing Maria's overall contributions to military communications and her role in improving personnel recognition policies. As she accepted the award, Maria reflected on a career that had evolved from behind-the-scenes technical support to public advocacy for comprehensive recognition of military service. In her final remarks as an active duty soldier, Maria emphasized the lessons she had learned about the importance of every role in military operations. Success depends on everyone doing their job with excellence, regardless of whether that work is visible to the public or recognized in media coverage, she said. Every technical specialist, every support person, every individual who contributes to mission accomplishment deserves acknowledgement for their service. Years later, as Maria transitioned to civilian life and began working as a defense contractor supporting military communication systems, she continued to advocate for recognition and representation of technical specialists in military operations. Her experience had taught her that individual recognition was less important than ensuring that all service members understood the value of their contributions to larger mission success. The photograph that had originally excluded Maria eventually became a symbol of broader changes in military culture and media representation. The image appeared in training materials, policy discussions, and academic studies examining how military organizations acknowledge diverse contributions to operational success. What had begun as a simple cropping decision had evolved into a catalyst for institutional change. Jessica Martinez won a regional journalism award for her reporting on Maria's story, with judges noting how her investigation had revealed broader patterns of oversight in military recognition policies. The reporter continued covering military affairs, with particular attention to stories about service members whose contributions had been overlooked or minimized in official accounts. The collaboration between Jessica's investigative reporting and Maria's professional competence had created a powerful example of how media attention could drive positive change in military institutions. Their partnership demonstrated that constructive criticism could lead to improved policies without undermining respect for military service or operational effectiveness. Maria's story became part of the curriculum at journalism schools, where it was used to teach investigative reporting techniques and the importance of looking beyond official narratives to find complete stories. Students learned to question what was missing from official accounts and to seek out perspectives that might have been overlooked or marginalized. In military education institutions, Maria's experience became a case study in leadership, recognition, and institutional culture. Officer candidates learned about the importance of comprehensive personnel recognition and the need to ensure that all contributions to mission success were acknowledged and valued. The lessons learned from Maria's story continued to influence military policies and procedures long after the initial media attention had faded. Personnel evaluation systems incorporated better methods for recognizing technical contributions, Awards processing procedures were streamlined to prevent administrative delays, and public affairs guidelines emphasized the importance of inclusive representation in official imagery. Most importantly, Maria's experience had demonstrated that individual advocacy, combined with media attention and institutional support, could create lasting change in military culture. Her story proved that service members who spoke up about recognition and representation could influence broader conversations about military values and institutional practices. As new generations of service members entered the military, they encountered institutions that had been influenced by the lessons learned from Maria's experience. Recognition policies were more comprehensive, administrative procedures were more efficient, and media representation was more inclusive than when Maria had first served as a communications specialist in Afghanistan. The soldier who had been cropped out of official photographs had ultimately become the catalyst for changes that ensured future service members would receive more comprehensive recognition for their contributions to military success. Her quiet competence had evolved into lasting institutional change that honored the diverse skills and dedication of all who served.